So, quick lesson in driving for dollars, because it's a real common thing that people ask, and it's not always so obvious how you do it. So the basic idea is you are literally getting in your car and you're driving neighborhoods looking for properties that look distressed, and writing down the addresses and then contacting the owners. But there's some tricks to it that people don't say when they say, oh, go driving for dollars. It's a great way to find deals. Absolutely great way. But the first thing is you got to be driving in the right areas. The most productive areas to drive for dollars in is rental areas. And I say that because you're just gonna find more properties. If you spend 2 hours driving for dollars in a rental area and you've written down less than 50 addresses, it's a miracle. Because the kind of issues you're looking for, which are vacancy, number one, and number two, relatively severe maintenance issues. You're much less likely to find those in a move-up neighborhood than you are in a rental neighborhood. And we can chuckle all we want about slumlords not keeping their properties up, but that's not what's going on. What's going on is you probably either have an elderly homeowner who cannot maintain their property anymore, and may have even, they may have moved in with their kids or something, and they just don't have the money to fix it. Or you've got a landlord who has run out of money to fix it. I mean, most landlords don't keep their properties in bad condition on purpose because it's profitable. It's not profitable because the city gets on it, the tenants move out. It's not profitable to keep your houses in bad shape. So we're not looking for, oh, there's a chip of paint up there on the eaves. We're looking for, oh, the gutters have fallen down on that one side of the house, or oh, that porch looks like it's got some serious wood rot, or some of the windows are actually just plywood because they're broken and they haven't been replaced, or board ups obviously are a good sign. High grass is a sign of vacancy as opposed to a real maintenance problem, but that would be another thing you look for. If you're driving in the wintertime in an area where they get snow, the house with no footprints. Snow's been on the ground for 2 days, and there's no footprints and no tire tracks in the driveway. That's a vacant house, right? The free papers that they put up on, when there's a pile of them, that means nobody's picked them up in weeks and weeks and weeks, right? So those are all signs of vacancy, and you're going to find a lot more of those in rental areas than you are anyplace else. So if you're looking for that kind of rental, that's a good way to find it. If you're looking to wholesale, there's people who buy those rentals, so it's a potentially good prospect. The only other area that this works real well in is the bread and butter areas. So this is a step up in the sense that there's generally going to be more pride of ownership in a bread and butter area, but it's like a working class area where it's going to be maybe half rentals and half homeowners, and those sorts of homeowners also can get themselves in a situation where there's stuff that needs to be fixed that they can't afford to fix, and they really need to sell the house and either go buy something newer or move into a rental or something, because they just they can't do what they need to do as homeowners. I was driving for dollars today, and I saw a house that instead of a roof, it had a blue tarp. And that means the roof's leaking so badly that it's getting in the house, but obviously you don't put a blue tarp on your roof if you can afford a new roof. So that kind of thing sticks out like a sore thumb. So do the right areas, you're going to get super frustrated. You're going to drive around a lot, and you're going to be like, there's nothing here. Or you're going to be writing down properties that are like, oh, well, the window sashes and the siding don't match in that property, because that's the worst thing you saw, right? So the second thing is, these are the areas. The properties are either vacant, because vacant properties always cost people money, Or if they're not vacant, you sort of feel like they should be. You sort of feel like nobody ought to be living in this property in this condition. And if you're writing down a lot of stuff that's it's not pretty, but it's not really awful, what happens is when you do the next part, which is the contact, you don't get a very high response rate, because you're looking for problems. You're not looking for properties, you're looking for problems. And then the third piece is the contact. How do you actually turn those into leads? And the answer is, number one, you find the owner. And that's usually done with the county website. You can at least find out who owns it. Half the time, you know the property is vacant because you just saw it. And yet it says that the owner lives at that property address. So then you have to do a second step of trying to skip trace that owner. And the simplest first way to do that is just Google them and see if you can find a different address for them. If you go for the full-on skip trace with something like venverify.com, then it's going to cost you a little bit of money, but you'll get a good address unless the person has moved super duper recently. The second piece there is to mail the owner once you find out where they actually live. And the mail can be very simple and just say, I saw you have a house at 123 Easy Street. I was wondering if you were interested in selling it, because if you were, I'm very interested in buying it. Call me anytime at this phone number. If you picked the right properties, that mailing should have 3 to 5% response rate minimum. If you send those out and you get like one call out of 100 postcards, you picked the wrong property or the wrong condition or something. Something went wrong there. So that means 95 to 97% of these people are not responding to you. And what do you do about that? Follow-up mail. You don't just hit them once and then say, well, they must not be interested in selling. But also, if it's a property that you particularly are interested in, or that you have some reason to believe there's even a secondary problem. So it's not only is it vacant, but when I looked it up on the county website, the guy's $17,000 behind in his taxes. So we don't just have one thing here, we got two things, right? That's when you go all whole hog on trying to get a hold of them. The skip trace should give you at least some ideas about phone numbers for that person. So calling or texting them. Tracking them down on social media. Seriously, like go on Facebook and see if they have a Facebook page. And if the guy's named Joe Johnson, you're gonna have a problem matching up the data. But if you spend an evening hitting up every Joe Johnson who seemed to live in the Cincinnati area and saying, hey, do you own this house? One of them might, LinkedIn, Twitter, all that stuff. And with the ones with multiple crossing issues, you want to pay a lot more attention to than everybody else, because like everything else you do to market, the fact that somebody has a vacant house does not necessarily mean that they are motivated to sell it. In fact, somebody inherited a house doesn't necessarily mean they're motivated to sell it. In fact, somebody's in foreclosure doesn't even necessarily mean they're going to sell it. But the advantage of these lists, the reason they have such a high response rate is because there's every chance that they're not appearing on another list. So if these people are getting any contacts, they're kind of few and sporadic, as opposed to somebody on the foreclosure list who's getting, the day their suit appears in court, the next day they probably get 35 pieces of mail, and then they end up with stacks of hundreds within the next few weeks. And it's much more likely that these people are not getting that level of contact. So that's the secret for driving for dollars. Pick the right area, pick out the right properties, and then make sure you're actually doing the last part, which is contacting them.